Hello everyone, and in this session we are going to speak about some mistakes committed by beginners, like mixing some standard tricks or standard moves. So let's start with Ruy Lopez opening, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and now bishop b5. And this is the standard variation played. a6, normal move, and now bishop takes c6, d takes c6, and knight takes e5, queen to d4, and now we can see both pieces are under attack, so we cannot protect both with one move. So knight to f3, queen takes e4, and this is normally what happens in such variation. So if we can try to analyze some moves, like instead of playing bishop to b5, we can play knight to c3, knight f6, bishop now to b5, and now we can play the move bishop takes c6, d takes c6, and now knight takes e5, and now we can see that the knight on c3 and everything is protected. So in this case we can play bishop takes c6, and we can take the pawn on e5. So we should keep this in mind if we want to play the variation bishop takes c6. So other moves, maybe instead of playing queen to d4, black can play queen to g5, and this is also another tricky move, attacking the knight, attacking the g2 pawn. So now white can play this trap or move. So in case queen takes g2, queen to f3, and the queen now is in big trouble and should be exchanged, and it's a good play for white. So now we can go to next opening. So in this game we can see e4, e5, also in the same opening and in the same try from white to gain some material in the opening. Knight to f3, knight c6, knight c3. Now we can see that the knight protecting e4 pawn. Knight to f6 also, this is the 4 knight variation. Bishop to b5, a6, and this is now in this line a6 is not good because the pawn on e4 is protected, so we can take on c6 and regain the e5 pawn. Bishop to c4 also bad because we should take on c6, knight e4, knight e4, d5, and black is good and he can gain his material back. Bishop takes c6, d takes c6, knight e5, and now we can see that the e4 pawn is protected once, one time with the knight. So now queen to d4, knight to f3 is playable. In the game, black played knight takes e4. So now there is many moves for white in case knight takes c6, and this is of course a blunder because knight takes c3 also, and this is winning for black. In case knight takes f7, also this is a blunder because of knight takes f7. So black is gaining material. So the good response for this move, knight takes e4. Okay, so knight takes e4, knight takes e4. And now black can play queen to d5 or queen to d4. The same thing and the same move. Black attacks two knights. So black, after attacking two knights in one move, of course we cannot protect the two knights with one move. So white decide to take the advantage and continue developing and let the choice for black to play. So in case black plays queen to e4, now this is wrong. Of course, this is a blunder because of the move rook to e1. And this is a very dangerous situation for black because after removing the queen, we have the king under a discovered check, and this is very dangerous for black. So we continue. After queen takes e5 from black, now white can play, for instance, d4, attacking the queen. So we don't forget about the rook to e1 threat to attack the queen and the king at the same time. So forking or pinning the queen with the king. In case queen takes e4, of course, rook to e1. This is so obvious. In case queen to e5, to f5, knight to g3, and we are gaining too much initiative, and the queen in the center, and also the king stay in the center, and good game for white. So after queen takes e5, rook to e1, of course, now there is something very dangerous for black. The queen in front of the king, and nothing is covering. So we have to cover this situation. In case bishop to e7, so now d4, and we can continue. Maybe knight to c5 after that. In case queen to a5, leaving the king in the center without any cover. So knight to f6 check. What to do? King d8, rook to e8, checkmate. So always we have to consider our opponent's moves. So now bishop to e6. We tried to play bishop to e7, and we tried bishop to e7, and we tried queen to a5. Now the bishop to e6, d4, queen f5, of course, removing the queen from the threat. So bishop to g5, white having a good game, so continuing his development. And now there is many responses. In case h6, bishop to h4, keeping control on the diagonal h4 to d8, preventing any castling. And this is actually the bad decision to develop the queen too early in the game, before castling and before developing the minor pieces. So in case f6, so closing the diagonal we talked about, and attacking the bishop. g4. So now, of course, white is very comfort with his game, so he can afford such moves to attack the queen and start opening lines for his pieces. So it's considered as like sacrificing a pawn, but with the situation, the king still in the center and the rook on the same file, this is very profitable for white. So of course, black don't take on g4, and now knight takes f6 with check. So check and attack, and how to defend now. Very dangerous for black. In case bishop to d6, so now developing and trying to castle to the king's side. So in case queen to d2, trying to complete development, and after that we can decide where to attack and what's the plan. So queen to d2 is a good move. Also g4. Also the g4 move is g4 move considered very promising for white. So black plays, in case queen takes g4, queen g4, bishop g4, knight takes d6, winning the bishop, attacking the king with double check, knight. So, and this is very dangerous. We cannot defend against this kind of checks. So this is winning for white. In case queen to d5, removing the queen from the threat. So b3, and of course you can notice after the plan is c4 and d5 and opening lines for the pieces, for the white pieces. And in the game, black choose to play queen to g6. Queen to g6, f4, so protecting our bishop. And now we are ready also to push f5, forking the king, the queen and the bishop, and now still the knight on e4, threatening knight d6 check with opening the line for the rook. In case h6, f5, still we are attacking and counter attack with bigger threat. So in case black threatening our bishop, so we can create a bigger attack or bigger threat by attacking his queen and his bishop. So of course he is going to remove his bishop, his queen, and bishop to h4, and also still the game is very good for white, because now the bishop on e6 must move with the previous attack or tactics, knight takes d6 double check with discover check. So this is the threats. In the game, black played f5, trying to defend and also preventing f5 from white, but this is also cannot be winning for black or sufficient for black, because of, in case knight to f6, this is analysis. Of course this is a blunder from black, from white side, in due to king to f7, and now all threats of white are gone. In the game, knight takes d6, now renewing our threat, knight takes d6 with check, c takes d6, and now d5. So d5, of course the bishop on e6 is pinned, cannot move. and this is absolute pin. The bishop cannot move, so black must take with the c takes d5. C takes d5, queen takes d5. Still, the threat is very dangerous and winning. In case king to d7, trying to defend, queen b7 check, and this is winning for white. Or king to f7. Also, we can now take and rook take and many threats for, and also we can take on b7, many threats. So instead of this messy lines, black decide to castle and give up his bishop. What to do? Rook takes e6, and now the queen somehow is in a bad situation. Queen to f7, queen to e2, f takes g4, queen takes g4, c takes d5, rook a to e1, rook a to c8. We can notice now, of course, with up material, white is very comfort with his game. Queen to g2, protecting the pawn on c2, and also threatening queen d5. Queen to f5, so now the queen attacks c2, the rook attacks c2, and we are defending with one piece, so we have to solve this situation. But white decides to give up his pawn and threatening mate on g7 with queen takes g7. Of course, this is easy to see or to defend. Rook to c7, rook to e7, cutting the protection of the g7 pawn, rook to f7, rook to e8 check, rook to f8, and rook e1 to e7, renewing the threat of queen takes g7 checkmate. Queen to f6, trying to defend, queen takes d5 now, and king to h8, rook takes f8 check, queen takes f8, rook takes c7, and now it's too much to handle, so black resigned. So you can see when you commit one mistake or one bad move in the opening, it leads to a bad situation the whole game if your opponent don't makes mistakes. So let's consider another game. e4, e5 also, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop b5, a6, and also another mistake from black. We do not always play a6. Just when your pawn on e5 is protected, you can play a6. So be careful, because the pawn on e4 is protected. So bishop takes c6, d takes c6, knight takes e5, knight e4, knight e4, queen d4, castle, queen takes e5, and now d4 as the previous game. Rook e1 was playable, so queen to f5. Of course, queen takes e4 is not a good game. It's entering rook f2 e1 and absolute pin. Knight to g3, queen to d5. You can see now the queen on d5 is a threat, is an object for a threat or to attack. Bishop f4. Always it's better to develop with attack, and this is what White's doing. Bishop to d6 played in the game. Better to play queen to a5, and now you can see how many moves Black played with his queen, like queen to d4 first, then queen to e5, queen to f5, queen to d5, queen to a5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just in 11 moves, 5 moves just for the queen. And this is why we don't develop our queen early in the game. So bishop to d6, knight to h5. And actually knight to h5 is a very excellent move, threatening g7, threatening rook to f1, and the knight on h5 is protected. And also we can play energetically and preventing Black from playing his plans. So now in case Black plays the normal move, castling, bishop to h6. And the idea of this move, in case g takes h6, knight to f6, and now forking the king and the queen. So this is not good for Black. Another move, in case bishop takes f4, knight takes f4 and also attacking the queen, and now we are going to play rook to e1, and this is pawns formation. Rook to e1, and this is dangerous for Black. So now White still threatening rook to e1 and knight to g7. So Black played rook to g8, protecting the g7 pawn. And of course, when you are forced to play such a move, this is bad for you because your rook protecting one pawn, and this is very bad. Now bishop to h6 is not playable. It's considered as a blunder because of bishop to h3, threatening mate on g2 and preparing for castling. So this is not a good idea. So b3, and b3 is an excellent move. Queen to f5, now preventing any try of c4 and attacking on c5. Bishop d6, c d6, knight to g3, attacking the queen, also another move for the queen. Knight to e4. So as you can see, in every move White is creating a threat. So for this reason Black couldn't initiate his plan or complete his development. So now to protect the d6 pawn, it's better to play queen to c7 and also another move with the queen. But what to do? So Black played king to e7. So now we see first move playing the rook to g8 to protect the g7 pawn, and now the king to protect the d6 pawn, and this is very, very dangerous and very wrong from black. Rook to e1, and now threatening the discover check. Bishop e6 covering, c4, and after that we can play d5. Rook g to d8, and now d5. So now, of course, the bishop must move. C takes d5, b4, and now before taking on d5, we are threatening the queen, and now because all the squares here are attacked or controlled, so of course after that we can take, and the bishop will be expelled. So queen takes b4, and now d5, and now in case bishop to d7, rook to b1, queen to a5, knight to g5 check, discover check, king f8, queen to h5 threatening mate on f7, and also threatening h7. So after this, of course, black can. So d takes e6, f takes e6, queen to g4, completing development and trying to exert more pressure and more attack. And now we're threatening the e6 pawn with knight to g5. So black, after queen to g4, black resigned because he is down material and his king is not safe in the center, and this is too much to handle. So another game, and now e4, e5. Still we are playing the Roly-Perez 4 knights variation. Knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, and this is the trick we are playing here in this variation, protecting our pawn on e4 to try to gain the pawn on e5. So knight f6, bishop b5, a6, bishop c6, dc6, knight e5, knight e4. Sometimes maybe the beginners don't know about knight takes e4, and after that queen to d4. So maybe you can win a pawn in the opening. So knight takes e4, knight e4, queen d4, castle, queen e5, d4, queen f5, rook e1, bishop e6, bishop to g5, bishop to d6, and now g4 could be played and more aggressive. Queen to d2 also playable, and this move was played in the game. h6, trying to attack the bishop and expelling the bishop from the diagonal, from this diagonal. So bishop to h4, in case castling could be played. Now g5. Also, it's not a good idea to start your attack and your king still in the center. But this game, it's between two strong grandmasters. So personally, I can't judge the grandmaster's moves, but at least theoretically and general principle, we cannot start attacking before getting our king to the safety. So knight takes d6, c takes d6, and bishop to g3. castling king queen side and queen to b4. Queen to b4. In case queen takes c2, sometimes our opponents are greedy, and any opportunity to take material, they will grab this material. So now d5, bishop takes d5, rook to e7, threatening mate on b7. So b5, queen a5, threatening mate on c7, and now the game is almost lost for black. So queen to d5, black didn't take the c2 pawn. b3, now preparing the c4 push. h5, still black playing on the king side, wants to attack the bishop on g3 because it's a very strong bishop. Rook a to d1, and now in case h4, c4, and after that we can push d5. So b5 now from black, queen to a3, and now still c4. Of course, white is much better developed, and his pieces are ready to attack. The rook's in the center, and we can open the game now. So c4, b takes c4, b takes c4, queen takes c4, and d5. And this is the main object of the attack, to push d5 and open the lines for the rooks. So in case h4, so attacking the bishop, the opponent will attack back with his pawns. So bishop takes d6 check, rook takes, and now d takes e6, and this is good for white. Another line, in case c takes d5, rook to c1, and the queen is lost. In the game, bishop takes d5. Okay, what to do? In the price of one pawn, we opened the line for the rook on a1, rook to e7 check. In case rook to d7, queen d6 check, and the rook is lost, and the game is lost actually. After that we have checkmate. So king to c8, bishop takes d6. So now in case queen to b5, trying to protect the king from any attack, rook to c7, king b8, and queen to e3, threatening checkmate on a7. Back to the game, rook to d7, cutting the rook, preventing any attack, but queen to b2, ready to go to b8 with checkmate. Rook take e7, queen b8 check, king d7, queen c7 check, and now in case king to e6, queen e7, king f5, queen to e5, and the rook is hanging, the king is under attack, and what to do for black? It's time to resign. Another variation, in case king to e8, queen takes e7 checkmate, and this is how we managed to win after our opponents commit small mistakes. We accumulate the mistakes. So now another game. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, knight C3, knight F6, bishop B5, A6. And you have to remember this A6 is not playable here. Bishop C6, DC6, knight E5, knight E4, knight E4, queen D4, castling, queen E5, rook E1, bishop E6, D4, queen D5, bishop G5,